Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me on today's CoolCare Masterclass, which is looking at getting the most out of invoicing, looking at kind of some additional functions in our invoicing options in CoolCare to see how you can get the most out of it and get what you need from CoolCare. As I'm sure you're aware, CoolCare is here to help make operating your care home easier, more efficient, and more profitable. And today, I think we'll be seeing how to do it via our invoicing options. So, as we're going through today's masterclass, if anyone does have any questions at any points, feel free to use the Q&A option on Zoom. You should find it on your Zoom taskbar somewhere, and you can then ask a question to a member of our team who will be on hand to answer any questions you've got as we're going through. And once we've done with the masterclass, we'll have some time afterwards at the end just to answer any questions you've got as we wrap up. So anything you think of as we go through, don't be afraid to ask. We'll try our best to answer any and all questions you've got here and now. So, as I said, what we'll be looking at today is exploring our invoicing functions, showing you how to kind of make the most out of it for your invoicing in CoolCare, such as customizing your invoice outputs and the branding for your invoices. And now looking at updating resident fees on their records for contribution changes as their fees might change during their stay, using stuff like billable extras, ad hoc adjustments for any additional charges we need to put on our invoices for our residents, and how CoolCare can handle any ad hoc invoicing as well for anything out of the ordinary that we might need to do. So we'll not waste any time. I'm going to swap over to my demo system and get things underway. Same, use that Q&A option on Zoom if you do have any questions at any points, and we can answer any you've got. Now then, if I share my screen, we should see CoolCare on there now. So we'll start with looking at customizing the invoices in CoolCare, your invoice outputs, the branding, the information that goes on there. That can kind of be customized at 3 different levels within CoolCare. You've got this customizing at the group level at the very top, the home level, 4 different homes, and the individual level, looking at residents and their contracts as well. You can customize the invoices, the outputs, them narratives in different ways. Starting right at the very top, you've got the group level, where if we go to the system configuration up in the top right corner of CoolCare, it'll bring us to this page here where we can see our invoicing settings. I need to say some group-wide settings that are going to affect all the homes in your system that you've got set up to ensure kind of consistency across them all. The main ones for customizing your invoices. First one, main one, is this invoice template, which is invoices that you might be printing off from CoolCare as a paper copy or emailing out from CoolCare to the recipients as well. We have some different templates in there, and they have different layouts in terms of how the information is all presented on the invoice. The header and footer. Some of them have logos you can put on there. Some of them work on headed paper for printing specifically as well. That's a whole different bunch of layouts you can play around with and see what they look like on the system from there. And for actually customizing the invoice narrative itself, you have your invoice descriptions on the right-hand side. The important ones being the invoice header and item description. Essentially, whatever's written here is what's going to be kind of your base default narrative on the invoices that you create, that CoolCare generates from the resident contracts. And these can be customized with what I call these variables. And you can see in these boxes with a little dollar sign next to it means it's then pulling information from a resident record, from their fee contract, from whatever details it might need. For example, their dollar sign type would be the resident's care type from their resident record. Client name would be the resident's name. Room would be the room number. Home would be the name of the home. Days being the number of days we're billing them for. SD, ED being start date and end dates. So essentially that's going to tell me the resident's care type for the residents in whatever room they're in, at the home they're in, for a number of days, dated with the start date and end date on that. And that's obviously going to be different every time when you're creating new invoices for that. And that way, you're not having to put that all in from scratch. CoolCare can recognize what you need and create that for you from there. If you hover over this little I next to where it says invoice header description, you can get a full list of all the different variables you can use in those. And that's such as stuff like the weekly fee in there, national insurance number, NHS number, and unique reference for them. Whatever you might need details-wise, it could go in there. And underneath that's the invoice item description. It's just the same kind of thing, just for a separate line underneath your header description on the invoice. And that can be, I'm saying again, whatever you want in there as well. There is an additional one, but for purposes of customizing invoices, those two are the important ones, the header and the item description. As well as that, you can customize them by uploading a logo, as you can see here. If you're using an invoice template with a logo, you can then upload a logo onto the system. That's just an image you upload onto CoolCare just by clicking the button and finding an image on your computer. and that would then be uploaded onto there, and that will just show as a logo on the invoices as they're created. And then underneath that, you've also got headers and footers, specifically broken down by by different funding types, payment types even. Cash, check, standing order, direct debit, and back transfer. It means you can customize what information goes into your headers and footers of your invoices, again, as they're generated by the system. And specifically the footers on the right-hand side can be actually customized at our next level, the home level on there. So yes, let's say this system config is group level settings that's going to affect all the homes, all the homes within your company, all the details and invoices they create. Unless, like I say, you have that tick box set to therefore using home level footers, that can be then customized at the homes individually. And you can find that under the care home section on the left-hand side and into the home setup. So now we're just looking CoolCare at a single home level rather than the entire group. And if I go into the settings tab on there, amongst all these settings you'll find in here, if I scroll down, some invoice settings there where you can customize those footers. Footers typically where you put different payment information, so different homes will have different details that they need in those, so they can be customized through the invoice settings, the footers in there. Again, broken down by the different payment types, as you can see. So that's the little bit of kind of home level customization you can do. It's just through the invoice settings there. But there is even a further level you can kind of customize and deviate from what you set up as well using what's called our overrides. So this is looking at things at like an actual individual resident level rather than, say, the group or home. So if we go into resident individually and go into their record, pick one on here. If you go into a residence fee contracts and into one of their contracts specifically, whichever one it might be, you'll have in here a tab called overrides. And now these overrides are where essentially if you want the invoices for this specific contract, this certain residence to say something different than what you had set up originally in the background, such as in the system config or in the home setup, that can be set up in here. As you can see, it can have its own header text and item text, which are those two fields in the system configuration, and its own footer, which again can either be overriding the system config or the home level stuff. So that way you can truly customize the output on an individual level if you need to. If you've got any special cases that need a specific narrative on the invoices, you can generate them from there with the overrides that you set up in here. And it can even have, as you can see there, its own nominal code, VAT code, if it be anything out of the ordinary in that regard as well. Yeah. Few ways to say that you can customize the narrative of your invoices, say to either be, obviously consistent across all your residents and their contracts you set up, different for different homes with different details you might need in your footers specifically, and even at the individual level here to say, certain details just for certain residents and contracts that we have. So that's the same how you can customize those in different ways. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is how we could update our residence fees via contribution changes. So, for example, in here, the fee contract. So this is actually a good reason I've chosen for this because their weekly fee does not equal their total fee contract contributions. What that little warning means is that their weekly fee here, the £1,000, isn't the same as what their fee contracts down the bottom add up to, which in this case, as we can see, if I do the maths, is £1,050. So we could do is use a fee change on one of their fee contracts to essentially balance that out and make sure that does, they're not overpaying essentially on here. So using a fee change, if we click on any fee contract, I'll use their next of kin one as an example. We can go to this tab here in the middle, contribution changes. If I click on that, this is where we can make a change to a residence fees contributions from their different fee contracts. So in this case, I'm going to just take this one down from £300 to £250 to ensure it then matches up with their weekly fee that we had set. Make sure the next of kin isn't overpaying. So if I click new contract change on there, to create it, all it asks for is a date effective of that change and what the weekly fee contribution changed as of that date. So date effective, you can backdate that as far as you need to. I can go as far back as I want to for that. I'm going to do it as the 1st of August, or you can future date it to plan it ahead in advance as well, if it was something you wanted to plan ahead of time. But in this case, I'm going to do it was taking effect from the 1st of August. And the weekly fee contribution, what it's changing to as of that date. Pop in there, change it from there, £250. Well, that's just to let you know, when you do a fee change, a fee con on here, you can see this little orange box on the right-hand side. This is telling you here that a backdated change can cause adjustments to be applied to an invoice, i.e., if you're changing what a resident should have paid for a period that they've already paid for, if you backdate it by quite a bit, it will create an adjustment to go into an invoice saying that, they paid this much, but they should have been billed this much, and it will create either a debit or credit based on the change if that's gone, up or down from there. CoolCare works all that out for you. You don't have to worry about doing the maths there. It will just say, this is what they should have paid, this is what they did pay, work it out the difference and create an adjustment on their next invoice. So if I say that in this case, I'm not sure if this one will have adjustments depending on what I've done. But yeah, I haven't billed them for August yet, so we don't have any adjustments to go onto that one. But you can see that from the 1st of August, that will change to £250. You can also see on this page here, we have an activity log, which is to say we can keep a record of who's made changes to the contribution changes on here, as you can see. So in this case, the one I've just done right now, that's me who's created that change, tell me when now it's done and what it's changed to from there. So you've got a full kind of audit trail of any changes people are making to residents' fee contracts and the contributions from there specifically. But yes, that will then be all squared up with those fees. If I go back to the fee contracts page now, we're no longer getting that warning at the top telling me that this resident's fees and weekly fee are misaligned. They're all good and in line with each other now. So that's how you can handle any fee changes you have by those contribution changes in individual contracts. Now, next bit to show you is how we can use billable extras, ad hoc adjustments for additional charges you might have. So anything additional you might need to kind of, oh, excuse me 1 second. Oh dear. Anything additional you might need to charge to your resident during their stay in their home or add to their invoices, you can do through CoolCare as well. And we actually have 2 functions for that, the billable extras and the ad hoc adjustments. Similar in functionality, but kind of different use cases they would have in there. Your billable extras would be for anything additional a resident might purchase during their stay that you want to invoice specifically for, that have like specific suppliers, say like hairdressers, taxis, something like that, anything like you can think of, that can be done through the billable extras. So I'll show you that one first, found in there. So this billable extras page just found under the billing tab on a resident record. You'll have an account that the billable extras will be billed to, which will be one of the residents' regular accounts, or it could be a brand new one just for that as well. And to create a billable extra on here, you just click the insert button on this page, and then we can fill out the details. So we choose a supplier, who it's for. And again, these suppliers are actually lookups in CoolCare that can be customized. So you can have, a list of suppliers you might have to say, who would be, where I guess these purchases have come from. I'll go just my home, for example. The dates of that purchase, when it was, and it might be yesterday. And the transaction type, again, that can be customized for different purchase types and whatever detail you might need. Once you choose the transaction type and the date, it will create a little description for you, which again, you can customize that if you want a bit more detail in there. And you need to pop in at the charge as well. Let's say £20, for example, in there. Save that. And that then creates our billable extra on the record there. That billable extra can then be processed when we're creating the invoices for this account the next time. And it can either be a separate invoice just for the billable extras, or it can be combined with the regular fees instead. So you can do it either way. So yes, billable extras are kind of, I guess, a more official way of doing it through there, just adding in and getting the full detail in on there, whatever you need to say. Whereas our other method of doing it, ad hoc adjustments, are a bit more for stuff that might be a bit more sporadic or out of the ordinary, that kind of fall outside of your regular stuff from there. So they're done through the fee contracts. You actually need to go into the fee contract itself, and through there you'll find the ad hoc adjustments. In there you'll get all your details, so we can add an ad hoc adjustment to this account, popping in the amounts, whatever it might be, a description for it. Again, it could be anything you think of really that kind of falls outside your regular stuff. You can just add it in with its own description there, customized completely off the bat. This could be, like I say, it could be something like an additional deposit. When the resident first comes into the home, we want to add that as an extra line onto their first invoice, kind of separate from the regular fees. I'll just like say anything out of the ordinary doesn't quite fit into the billable extra side of things. We can pop it in on here instead. And you can also assign a nominal code to it as well. Again, those nominal codes can be set up in the background for your billing system through here. Once I create that charge, that is then a one-off charge that will go to the next invoice to generate false account in the similar way that billable extra would. But this one can't be separated, so ad hoc adjustments will always be on the same account as the same invoice as the regular fees, whereas billable extras you can separate out on there if you would need to. And I can show you how they work. If I go to my invoicing section, we can see those, how they would show up on the invoices themselves. Give that a second to load up. There we are. And if we find it, actually, right at the top of my list, this is where we come to process and create the invoices. And actually, if I open up that billable, that account there to show you the preview. Oh, did I put on the wrong one? I did. I put them on different ones. So I've put there the billable extra on the next of kin account here. You can see there with the fees. Oh no, that's the ad hoc adjustment, isn't it? It's on there. Where's my billable extra gone? Oh no, excuse me, I'm losing my mind. That is the billable extra on there, the £20 I put in on that one. Yes, I doubted myself for a second there, but yes, that next of kin one has the billable extra in there, as you can see, with the extra purchase for the £20 that we put in. Whereas the other one, which is the local authority one, has an extra £50 test fee in there as well. So that one's the ad hoc adjustments, which can't be separated, but on here from the invoicing page, you can separate out to just look at the contracts and billable extras only, whereas default they are combined. So if I just do billable extras only, we can then create just that billable extra for that one in there. Yes, while billable extras can be separated from your regular fees, the ad hoc adjustments can't. So if you want to create a separate invoice for a fee, do it as a billable extra on there. If it's like, say, something out of the ordinary that just goes as an extra line on their invoice, do it as the ad hoc adjustments. Either way, I'm going to generate those invoices so I can actually then show you them. So if I just quickly process these, we'll just batch process those two invoices for the ones we've just created. And from here, they'll pop up in my invoices page. And this is kind of where everything gets brought together in terms of what we've seen. So the customizing of the invoice outputs with all the settings we're doing in the background, the fee change we did on the residence contract, the next of kin one, as well as let's say those extra charges from the billable extras or ad hoc adjustments. So if I was to print off those two invoices, we can have a look at them and see how it all comes together. So for this one, it's bringing together, so this is a printed invoice that's bringing together all the information I've put on my invoices settings-wise. So I've got like my logo uploaded there, the details from the background in there, or the narrative. This one's got the ad hoc adjustment, that £50 I popped in on there. And if I scroll down, the next of kin one has the extra. You can see the fee change to £250 and the purchase there with the extra £20 bill extra I put in for that. So you can see how all that comes together on the invoices you create from CoolCare with all the different things we can set up to ensure it shows exactly what we need to see on there. But one additional thing you can do with the invoices on here is actually create them ad hoc. So if you need to just create an invoice or kind of anything out of the ordinary that we wouldn't go through your regular billing process, you can actually create invoices right off the bat from your invoices page here. You might notice at the top of this invoice list, you've got the insert button. If I click that, I can essentially create a manual invoice on this page to be for whatever I need it to be. So we just need to say which resident the invoice is for. In this case is Elizabeth, we've chosen there, and which account as well. I'll just use the next of kin one as an example. The invoice date. So I can pop in the invoice date in there, as well as the invoice period, all the stuff we might need to know, as well as the payment type. So you kind of fill in the basic details there to create a blank invoice. If I save that, put it in there. And then with that new kind of blank invoice created, if I scroll down, I can then add items to this invoice to say what it's for. So if I click add invoice items on here, we can then fill out the details and add potentially multiple lines onto the invoice. So I'm just going to pop in the similar kind of details. Our start date and end dates for August. Description, I'm going to do a credit for that £50 test fee I popped in earlier. The nominal code, the VAT code, which is going to be excluded, and the unit price. In this case, because I need to do it as a credit, I'm actually going to put it in as a minus. So if I put minus 50 in there, that will then be a £50 credit instead of a debit on there. Let's save that. And that will then add the invoice line underneath that, as you can see. And you can add multiple lines onto your invoice, so you can have as much detail as you want on there. Once that's saved, that invoice is then on the system like any other invoices you've got on CoolCare. As you can see here, then minus 50 on that. And like any other invoice we create, if I click into that, I can then print that off, email it out, import it into our billing system directly from there. So, and that's just that £50 credits from there. And it even calls it a credit rather than an invoice as well. That's the big thing as well with that. Yeah. Again, kind of anything out of the ordinary that you might have that say might not fit into your regular invoicing billing process that you just need to do as a one-off, you can do through the ad hoc invoices just by creating them manually on here. But, yeah, plenty of options you have on CoolCare for all information you need for billing side of things, customizing your outputs for what it all look like, and keeping stuff up to date with changes to your residents with their fees and any kind of one-off stuff you need to do with those bill vouchers, ad hoc adjustments, anything you think of like that, you can do through CoolCare, or just do stuff like say ad hoc from the invoicing page. Excuse me. Anything you do ad hoc, you can do directly from your invoices page on here as well. But yeah, CoolCare can handle anything you throw at invoicing wise. It'll be able to handle all different changes and stuff you might need to make on there. And that is kind of what I can do to get the most out of your invoicing in CoolCare. And that'll be all for me to show you. But before we finish, a couple extra things just to go back to on my. There we are. So, if you're interested in further training on CoolCare, whether it's whatever you might do in your company, financing, payroll, rotas, tracking of residents, anything you think of at all, we can do some training with you on CoolCare, whether that's online or in person. And you might be aware already, but you are entitled to some free of charge training. Every customer will have at least 2 30-minute free of charge training sessions to use as part of their CoolCare subscription. You can contract us a training to see what your entitlement is if you have any to use up. And get something booked in for you if you like. You can either email us training@coolcare.co.uk, or you can call us 0113 385 3853, and we can help you out with anything you need. Any training you think of that you want, we can do it for you. And all that's left to say for today is thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time, 2 weeks. For next, we'll be looking at tracking of occupancy and inquiries in our home. That'll be in 2 weeks' time, the 20th. So thank you all for joining. And hopefully I'll see you again for that next session. Well, we'll stick around for say 5 minutes till past, just for if anyone has any further questions. So I'm not going anywhere right yet. So if you do have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A and we'll be able to answer anything you've got. But for everyone else, thank you all for joining and have a nice day.